Coming up on today's Next Fan Up podcast.
I just have a feeling in my water, Doc. I mean, if Kansas City play well, it's going to be like Doc's recipe, isn't it? They're going to be covered in crushed Oreos and caramel sauce by the end of the game. The Brownies. There's worse things in life than being wasted for 3 years, let me tell you.
Well, as Doc puts it, it's football therapy for every football fan. Here we go.
That's how we start. Yeah, baby.
32 super fans.
Where do the reports come from? Did you get an initial?
One Pod Vader.
That's football.
Every angle of the NFL covered.
All that kind of stuff, I get it.
This,
no question about it,
is Next Fan Up.
We're going to unleash hell here in December.
Hello and welcome to the divisional round of the NFL playoffs as previewed by Next Fan Up. Hey everybody, Pod Vader here to help lead the round table of superfans as we do each and every week here on the now technically accurate late Thursday afternoon edition of the podcast. Joining me as always from across the pond, the Washington football team superfan Neil. Hello, Neil.
Hey guys, this football, it's almost done. We're almost there. We can get to the real stuff like the draft and free agency.
Real stuff.
That is the voice of Doc, the Gridiron award-winning chef. Hello, Doc.
Hello, boys. I am not sleeping well, but this is always the craziest. Hey, you know what? Overall, maybe the best slate of games we've had in a long time, quite a few years. So looking forward to it.
Indeed.
Well, let's hope, Jock, that we don't get a snore fest in the middle of the weekend like we did with your bloody Saints last week.
Oh, God.
That was terrible.
All you had to do was watch Nickelodeon. You would have been well entertained.
Slime cannons.
I kind of felt
are awesome.
And watching that, I kind of felt I was in the slime zone most of the night.
And of course, the man who joins me every Tuesday for the NFL Sound Off edition, that is our Eagles superfan, James. Hello, James.
Hey guys, look, Neil, it's okay. Your team was just happy to be there. At least they got there. And Doc, you're not going to sleep until this game is over with.
Hold on, James. I'll get back. I'm just emailing Elizabeth.
Nextfanup@gmail.com is the email address that Elizabeth could email us at if she prefers. Or you can tweet us at NFU Podcast, Facebook.com/NFU Podcast. Another great way to continue the conversation. As you may or may not know, depending on if you're a new listener or an older listener, we will go through all of the playoff matchups first, and then we will talk about all of the non-playoff teams at the second half of the show. And we do have quite a bit of news in the second half, although we still don't have an official head coach hiring, which I find rather odd considering where we're at in the head coaching search at this particular point.
But perhaps that suggests that a lot of the candidates are still actually coaching.
Could. Certainly
At least
could.
the best candidates are probably still coaching. But Jacksonville's probably going to have their coach by the time we're done with this. So when the audience is listening to this afternoon, Jacksonville will pretty much be done with their.
Yeah,
and Jacksonville will be pretty much done for the next 2 to 3 years as well. We will get to that.
Hey, that's not my problem.
We'll get to that in the second half of today's podcast. Before we jump in to the previews, I, of course, will start with some totally useless stats. From the business side of things, the Morning Consult, it's a newsletter I subscribe to. They conducted a survey of something like 2,000 or so people, and whoa, we got noise in the background. 3 in 4 people planning on watching the Super Bowl this year don't plan on getting together with other fans for the game, which leads me to believe that this could be the highest rated Super Bowl in history if people are all legitimately at home watching by themselves. What do you think of that? Thank you.
Yeah, that's the way I always watch the game.
You do, and I do sometimes, but this year I would have totally gone to a party because my team's not involved. So I'm going to want to go someplace and make fun of the people that are actually rooting for the teams on the screen. That's not going to happen this year. So,
well, Jay, you should know that it's always a party when your team's not involved.
it is always a party when my team's not involved. It's a party when they are involved too.
No, it's not.
It's just a different kind of party.
It's everybody against your team.
Also, the NFL gave their broadcast partners permission to run 2 more minutes of commercials per game.
Oh gosh!
Here during the playoffs. So get to look forward to at least 4 more commercials, right? Commercials about 30 seconds a piece.
Yeah, I mean, it is quite sobering when you've watched Red Zone all year, and then you turn on to just a one live game. It's like, oh my God, it's like wading through treacle, isn't it?
It's like listening to a podcast at 1.5 speed, and then you go and actually listen to it at normal speed. You're like, man, this is slow. All right, let's get into some game stats.
That was an interesting insight into your life there. Thank you.
You like that? I thought you would. In the AFC, the average age of the 4 starting quarterbacks on game day will be 24 years and 345 days, which marks a single conference's youngest group of starting quarterbacks in the divisional round of the playoffs in NFL history. Conversely, I'm sorry, before I even get to that, 3 quarterbacks selected in the first round of the 2018 NFL draft, that being Baker Mayfield, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, are all going to play. And this will mark the second time in the common draft era that 3 first-round quarterbacks from the same NFL draft will start in the divisional playoffs in the same postseason. This previously occurred in the 2008 postseason when 3 quarterbacks selected in the first round of the 2004 draft, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, and Ben Roethlisberger, each started in the 2008 divisional playoffs. Yeah. Youth is on the AFC side, where it's experience, not age, on the NFC side. The NFC will feature 3 of the most prolific quarterbacks in league annals. That would be Tampa Bay with Tom Brady, who has 6 Super Bowl wins, New Orleans, Drew Brees, who has 1, and Green Bay's Aaron Rodgers also has 1. And they have combined, obviously, if you do the math, 8 Super Bowl victories, which is more than any group of starting quarterbacks ever in a single conference's divisional round. And we'll get into the History Channel of the battle between Tom Brady and Drew Brees a little bit later on, because that'll be the last game that we preview. What do you think of those stats this week, Neil?
I've just been thinking that we'll get on to the games themselves in a minute, I'm sure, Jay, but when you were mentioning Brady there, you do think more and more, having watched him really closely at the weekend, I have a feeling you made a mistake getting rid of him.
Oh, you think? Well,
Yeah,
we didn't get rid of him. He decided he wasn't going to come back.
Yeah, but you could have tagged him.
Well, I suppose that's one way we could have done it. Sure. Held him prisoner in Foxborough, where he says he will never live again. He'll never live in the Northeast again. Never.
He's a Californian boy, though, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah.
But there is New York. He's going to have to do business in New York, I'm sure. And depending on what his real aspirations are, he may have to go to Washington, D.C. So we'll have to see.
Really?
Yeah, I'd advise against that right now.
You think he's a
Not
political?
safe there.
Oh, you meant in the sort of the second wave of protests?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying Tom Brady has perhaps some political aspirations when his career is over.
Because I can tell you one thing: he is definitely a Republican.
Yes, he is.
Yes, he is.
Let's move back to the gridiron and kick things off on Saturday at 4:30 p.m. on Fox, where we have the Los Angeles Rams facing the Green Bay Packers. The Rams are the lowest ranked team remaining in the playoffs at 12. That's according to the Next Fan Up power rankings. The Green Bay Packers are second. Las Vegas is favoring the Green Bay Packers by 6.5. Before we start talking about this game in depth, I will allow our Green Bay Packers superfan, Brian, share his thoughts.
What up, NFU fans? Green Bay Brian here to break down the Packers-Rams playoff matchup. Number 1 offense against number 1 defense to kick off the divisional weekend? Yes, please. I think the Packers offense against the Rams defense features just matchups galore. I mean, headlined by Davante Adams versus Jalen Ramsey. I think both of these guys are among the best in the biz. I think they know it. I think it's a big stage. I think everybody needs to get their popcorn ready because I think we're about to be in for a treat. Not to be outdone, we've got the Packers offensive line against the Rams defensive line. And kind of zooming in a little bit, obviously the Packers need to account for Aaron Donald. Fortunately, we do have the number one center in the game right now, in Corey Linsley, so hoping he can represent. Now, obviously, Packers lost David Bakhtiari to a knee injury a couple weeks ago. It's a major blow. There's no getting around it. I will say I think the offensive line is a position of strength for us. It's as strong as a unit as it's been in quite a while. So hopefully there's not too much of a drop-off. We held up pretty well against Chicago, and that's a pretty solid unit in their own right. I think on offense, the key to the game is going to be the Packers' ability to run the ball. I think we've got our full complement of running backs, and I expect to see all three of them, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, and A.J. Dillon. I think the wide receiving core is clicking, and Rodgers has just been on point. Looking at, it's a small sample, but looking at the last two games, he's only got one more incompletion than touchdown pass, and the MVS drop against Chicago would have evened that number. It was a pretty egregious drop. So that's kind of the Packers offense against the Rams defense that I'll be watching. Flipping the script there, Rams offense against the Packers defense. I think there's going to be some good matchups there too. The defense in Green Bay is ascending. We've got the number one safety duo the last quarter of the season. Savage, living up to his name. And Adrian Amos has been an opportunistic prowler in the back end. We played pretty well against the run, which I think we're going to need to continue to do. Honestly, of the weapons that the Rams have at their disposal, I think the running game is the area that worries me the most. But that said, I think we've been playing pretty well against the run lately. We were able to hold Derrick Henry under 100 yards, which is always a feat. But still, I think I'm expecting the Rams to try to run the ball and stick to that. Because passing has been difficult for teams. Jair, I think, got snubbed for the All-Pro, and so he's going to be a little hungry, expecting him to be his normal awesome self. And the guys behind him have been playing really well too. Kevin King, Chandon Sullivan, both of those guys have been playing some of the best football I've seen out of them in their time in Green Bay. When it comes down to it, I'm not going to pick against my Packers. We've got an MVP trigger man. It's outdoors in the cold. Give me Green Bay by 10. I'll call a 30 score against 20 for the Rams. Go Pack, go.
So Brian is got Davante Adams versus Jalen Ramsey and the Packers offensive line versus the Rams defensive line as the key areas to watch in this particular game, and says the Packers must run, and good luck to the Rams trying to pass on the Green Bay Packers secondary, picking them to win 30-20, the Packers. Of course he is. He is the super fan. We actually all kind of like the Packers here, except for Neil.
Absolutely, and I think this is a landmark moment for this podcast, because for the first time for a long time, maybe ever, I'm interested in James's injury report to see if Aaron Donald is going to play or not.
Oh, he's playing.
He's playing.
He's playing.
As a matter of fact, he was quoted as saying, "I feel no pain." That was his exact quote.
Neil, there are quite a few people on the Rams injury report. They're going to play.
Yeah, you got to pulse your plan. Drop it. That's it.
But what are we going to get from him? That's the question. Because, okay, the defense didn't seem to drop off very much, did they, against the Seahawks when he went out for that?
No, look at Leonard Floyd.
Yeah.
Look at Leonard Floyd, how he's playing.
Yeah. So that's why I've gone for the Rams, Jay. I really feel strongly that this is the best defense that's left in the playoffs. And it was, the Seahawks, not the greatest offense in the world. They clearly need to run the ball more. But I do think the Rams are a terrific defensive side. And I don't know about you guys, I was really, really impressed with the Rams in that game. I thought they absolutely shut down the Seahawks, and managed to find ways to put points on the board and more than enough points to win the game. For me, that was the most impressive playoff performance of the weekend.
Agreed.
Just to set up some more things that you mentioned there, Neil. Green Bay led the NFL with 31.8 points per game. That is the second highest total in franchise history. They averaged 35 points per game in 2011. They paced the league by scoring touchdowns on 80% of its red zone possessions. The Rams allowed the fewest points per game, 18.5, fewest yards per game, 281.9, fewest passing yards per game, 190.7, and ranked second in sacks, 53 in the NFL this season. Aaron Rodgers, 0-2 versus the number one pass defenses in the playoffs in his career. Since 1990, there have been 7 games of the top offense versus the top defense in the postseason. Defense has won 4 times. So it's not as lopsided as you might think. It's actually pretty even. For 7 games, 4-3. P.S. Aaron Rodgers is going to guest host an episode of Jeopardy in the coming months. He won Celebrity Jeopardy back in 2015. Just as an aside, threw that in there for you.
And Rodgers, 40 playoff TDs, will pass Manning with 1, Favre with 4, only needs 35 to pass Brady. Rodgers, 7th all-time in playoff passing yards, 5,027. Drew Brees, 52-32. May I add, boys, I think the star of the show this Sunday, regardless that I'm picking the Packers, is Brandon Staley getting head coaching nods, the Vic Fangio disciple. And I will agree with just about every pundit I have heard, including on this podcast. All right. Jalen is not going to be sitting on top of Devontae Adams the entire game. They are moving him around. Guaranteed. That's one of the signatures of a Fangio defense. They play who they need. They be who they need to be every single. They're an amoeba. They had to guard Russell Wilson differently. It personifies flexibility. You won't see something as simple as CB1 shutting down a wide receiver 1. It's not going to happen. Okay, that's my opinion. If you look at Brandon Staley right now, what he has produced with that personnel is the most impressive coordinator in the NFL this year. James, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, going up against the Seahawks, that was easy for them to do as far as mixing up who lines up where in the secondary, because you play this team twice a year. You're used to the schemes. It's evident by that pick 6 on the wide receiver smoke screen. That was a dumb call to try to force the ball to DK Metcalf.
It was a great play, though. You agree? It was a great play, though, right?
That was a great play. That shows film study. And like you said, Ramsey doesn't just solely line up on one side of the defense. He lines up on both sides of the defense on the outside. He also lines up in the slot. And it's not always over the number one receiver for the opposition. It's pretty much who they need to eliminate for that down and distance in that situation. So sometimes it's the number. Most of the times on first down, he probably will be lined up on Devontae Adams, but only on first down. Second and third, probably not.
By the way, the Patriots have learned this too. Sometimes it's best to take your number one corner and match him up against your second wide receiver and double team the number one receiver. It ends up working out better for the defense in a strength way.
Yeah. Well, listen, if you look at Jalen this year, I remember time Michael Thomas torched him, but he has picked up his game the last couple of years. They're playing him all over the place. Look at the film, slot, off coverage, bump. They are doing everything with him. What they do with him affects the rest of the framework of that secondary. But it all comes down to the pass rush. And here's what's daunting. Green Bay's number 1 in pass block win rate, number 1 in run block win rate. But was that with their tackle? Right? Yeah, LA, on the other hand, is number 1 in deep passes. And when Aaron can't throw the ball deep, sometimes he runs into problems. So I think this is a good yin yang. This game, I think, could be close. There could be an upset. But I just like what Brandon Staley has done. Just phenomenal. So,
I mean, I will take caution based on my picks last week, going 3-3 straight up and only 1 versus Vegas. but I just don't see it. I'm hearing everyone talk about the Rams are a good defensive match against the Packers, but I think the Packers just have way too much firepower. I don't think the Rams, really the issue is going to be Jared Goff. James brought this up on the Tuesday podcast. Goff came in and played admirably, but if you look at his stats, they're quite horrible.
Yeah,
but I can't grip the football with that thumb.
Yeah, but I don't think the Rams. I don't think the Rams use the quarterback. It's not the forefront of their game plan. I think he's not like the Saints or one of these other teams like the Buccaneers. It's keeping Goff's imprint on the game to a minimum, and that's the best way for the Rams to win.
Well, if you do that, then you're going to get blown out by the Packers.
No, you're not. No, you're not.
Well, you got to keep up with the Packers. You're not going to be unless you are running the ball. And yes, the Rams have 3 pretty good running backs that they can run the ball and keep Rodgers off the field. There's no way you're going to keep up with the Packers if you're limiting Jared Goff's imprint on the game.
Well, that's how they beat the Seagulls. Yeah, that's how they've got themselves to the playoffs this year. You could argue that's how they got themselves to the Super Bowl a couple of years back. I think it's a game plan that works for them, Jay. I think McVay's creative enough to sort that out, and that defense can stop anyone on their day. And let's be clear here. Take away Devontae Adams, and that takes a large chunk of this Packers team away. And the loss was it Bakhtiari, the left tackle, the star left tackle. He's out.
Valdir is in. That's NFL history, isn't it?
Out.
No, Valdir's out. He's on the COVID list.
Oh, is he really? I didn't see that. Wow.
Yes.
Uh-oh.
Yeah.
Uh-oh. All right. I'm going to
go on, Doc. Do it, Doc. Do it.
All right. I'm changing my pick.
I
just think
no.
I think this torn cartilage stuff fine and be dandy, but has anybody watched the rest of that line play? Not just Donald. Look what they did with him out of the game. It's crazy. Leonard Floyd has been there's 2-3 times a quarter where he is in the quarterback's face. He is one of the hottest players in the league right now.
And Doc, to that, I'll say the Seahawks never really tried to establish a run in that game last week. Mm-hmm. They gave up on it at the end of the first quarter. They only went to it as a last resort of it's 3rd and forever. Here's a draw play or Russell Wilson running for his life. Designed runs for the rest of the game were virtually non-existent. They took themselves out of that game when they didn't have to. And this is the way you beat the Rams. I've said this for the longest time because, look, I will always go back to the 2017 year. The Eagles set the blueprint. If you run at Aaron Donald and let his pass rush take him out of the play, you can have success running against the Rams. And I'm not saying Aaron Donald is a bad player. No.
But hello, Aaron Jones.
Aaron Donald, look, for all his great prowess and defensive line play, he is not the stud run stopper. Yeah, he makes a play here or there, but he is not the guy that's like, don't run at him. No, you want to run at Aaron Donald. Make him make the play in the run game to slow down his pass rush. You can do that. Yeah. You keep this defense off balance. You keep them playing honest. They don't get to, tee off and, put 5 pass rushers in their front 7 on any given play for you to figure out who's coming after your quarterback.
Yeah.
And this is what Green Bay has done this year. They found it was a struggle last year with the new offense. This year, they figured it out, and they found their balance of run and pass to a point to where everybody's happy, both coach and quarterback. Yeah. And they have a 2-headed monster back there, Jones, Williams. They can run both of those guys effectively well. So I think that's going to be key. As long as Green Bay can consistently run the football, they should come away with the W.
Neil, I have a weather report for you. There is snow in the forecast.
And then there's that.
For Friday.
About time.
For Friday.
Friday. Oh.
Not for Saturday. Saturday, cloudy, high of 34, breezy, 12-mile-per-hour winds. So
I say don't put the tarp down.
So no weather, and honestly, there's the next game. There's a slight chance of some snow, but we'll get to that in a second. What is the injury report, James, and we can move on to the next one.
I'm going to start with the Rams, and all of these guys are expected to play. Aaron Donald with the ribs, Cooper Kupp with his knee, Warford with his neck, Terrell Lewis Andrew Whitworth and David Edwards. Those last two, both tackles. Keep an eye on that. Edwards left last week's game against the Seahawks with an ankle injury. So something to keep an eye on for the Packers. Mercedes Lewis, Alan Lazard, a questionable knee and wrist, respectively. Valdir, we already mentioned. Running back Patrick Taylor Jr., he is out. The guard, Stepaniak, has been placed on injury reserve with a knee. Cornerback Kevin King, linebacker Zadarius Smith, Equiminius St. Brown is listed as questionable with a knee injury. The other tackle, Rick Wagner, shows up on the injury report as questionable as well. But aside from anybody who I said was out or IR, I expect the rest of them to play.
All right. Let's move on to 8:15 p.m. on NBC. And we have the Baltimore Ravens at the Buffalo Bills. The Ravens 7 in the power rankings. The Bills are 3rd. Bills are favored by 2.5. I'll get it out of the way right here. The weather report says a chance of snow showers with a low of 32 degrees. It will definitely be breezy up there with 15-mile-per-hour winds. I'm guessing coming off the lake, which will give you some of those snow showers. And as Doc has mentioned, sometimes these snow showers in Buffalo can drop a few inches. So let's hope that's the case in this one.
Out of nowhere, too. Yeah, absolutely.
Before we jump into the game, let's hear a little bit of what Don, our Baltimore Ravens superfan, had to say.
Hey, guys. This is Don, the Ravens superfan, calling in with a short preview of the Ravens at Bills divisional round playoff game. Ravens-Titans last week was a little bit lower scoring than I thought it would be, but obviously the Ravens pulled it out. It's going to be an even tougher contest this week. The Bills really don't have a real running game to speak of besides Josh Allen. I think that's going to be the key, is really not only shutting down his passing. I mean, he's going to get his passes to Stephon Diggs. They've been on fire. It's really going to be stopping the scrambling ability, stopping those huge runs and stopping the touchdown runs from Josh Allen. That's going to be the key for the Ravens on defense. I mean, they have a lot of problems getting pressure against good teams, and keeping Josh Allen in the pocket is going to be the key. As far as the offense goes, more of the same, obviously. Bills have let off some really bad defensive performances against the run this year against some good teams. The Ravens really should be able to run all over them. I liked what I saw last week, obviously, with Lamar Jackson, but I think the running backs get a little bit more involved this week. It's going to be a tough game, cold game. I don't know whether it'll be a factor or not. Again, as I did last week, I'm feeling good about the Ravens this week. On a roll, just as much as the Bills are. I think they're going to run it. I think they're going to keep Josh Allen off the field. Ravens 24, Bills 20.
Don says the key for the Ravens will be to stop Josh Allen from running. They can keep Josh Allen off the field, and if they can run all over Buffalo, which they should be able to do, as I have my stats, which says, including 236 rushing yards in its wildcard victory, Baltimore has totaled 889 rushing yards. That's 296.3 per game over its last 3 games, led by Lamar Jackson, who became the first quarterback in NFL history with multiple 1,000-yard rushing seasons. Baltimore led the NFL this season with 3,071 rushing yards and 191.9 rushing yards per game. They are the first team in league history to rush for at least 3,000 yards in consecutive seasons. And then, for my good buddy Matt Verderame at Fansided, Buffalo's rush defense tied for 22nd in yards per carry against, 4.6. And on, let's see, I'm sorry, what does this say? I don't know. Anyway, on Saturday, they allowed 163 rushing yards on 5.4 yards per carry to the Indianapolis Colts. Even though I've written all of that, I'm still going to give the edge to the Buffalo Bills, unlike Don and unlike James, who's alone on an island on this one. You are taking the Ravens.
Yeah, look, I don't think the Ravens are done. I think that, the core group of everybody who went 14-2 last season is back this year. They're angry. They're hungry. I think at the very least, they want to get to that AFC Championship game and set up the matchup we should have got last year against the Chiefs, which would have been in Baltimore had they taken care of business. They're clicking on all cylinders. Lamar Jackson is still an anomaly you cannot game plan for. for any reason whatsoever. I'm not taking anything away from the Bills. They played a very solid game against the Colts. I wish they had dominated them from beginning to end instead of instead of the game being close. But part of that is on Josh Allen, and I think that this is where experience, even though both these quarterbacks in the same draft class, Lamar Jackson has played in 2 more playoff games than Josh Allen. And Allen last weekend almost cost his team the game by running 20 yards in the wrong direction and then fumbling the football. So, again, I said big ups to his tackle. I will say big ups to his tackle again for recovering that fumble and saving that game for them, because he makes that mistake this week, it could cost him the game early to the point to where they can't get back into it.
That was old Josh Allen, wasn't it? That's what I talked about a couple weeks ago. I was like, he crafted a really good game. And then all of a sudden, there's the old Josh Allen he's known for. So, Neil, my Scottish friend.
Look.
Give me a factoid, something that is going to let me know that my ex-wife, the Buffalo Bills, can continue on this winning path and appeasing the decades of hell that the Bills Mafia has gone through.
Well, Doc, I just have a feeling in my water, Doc, that the Bills are going to the Super Bowl this year.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I just have this feeling that Allen is playing at such a level. Everything seems to be going right for them. When they got into a wee bit of trouble there against Indianapolis, boom, they managed to pull it out, turn it around. I think they've got the character. I think they've got the intangibles to overcome Baltimore now. Hey, this is not going to be an easy game. Of course it isn't. Baltimore have proved to be a really difficult opponent. But I just don't see where Baltimore, who are going to have to pass the ball at some point, are going to get past that Buffalo secondary. I think that's the real strength for Buffalo. I like Milano at linebacker. They're good they're good over the middle, and Jackson throws a lot of balls to those tight ends over the middle. I think that will be cut out to a certain extent. So I just think Buffalo at home will do it.
Well, I have the write-up here from Buffalo Rob, who says Josh Allen goes up against yet another team that loves to blitz. No quarterback has been blitzed more than Josh Allen, and he has thrived in it for the most part with a 111 QB rating while being blitzed. The big problem for the Bills will be if they can get the run game established. Baltimore not great against the run, but the Bills look bad in 21 carries against Indy last week. I expect a lot of Josh Allen running this week. Having all of the wide receivers healthy will be a big boost as well, but Baltimore, one of the best man-covered teams in the NFL. Main priority on defense is stopping Lamar and company from running the ball. Bills did a fine job last year, but the team is upgraded at running back with rookie J.K. Dobbins. They will give the Bills soft run defense all they can handle, and tight end has been a matchup nightmare for the Bills, and Baltimore has a good one in Mark Andrews. That will be a problem. He says that this would be Lamar's first game in the snow, of course, assuming it does snow Saturday night.
Yes.
He was saying he only seen snow once or something in his life, apparently.
When he was at Louisville.
Jay, I think one thing...
went at Louisville, but they didn't play in it.
Yeah, I think one thing we have to be clear here is that this is not the Baltimore defense of old. This is a unit that can be run on, can be passed on, and can be scored on. And I don't think Buffalo's defense altogether is as good as it's been in the last year or two. So I would predict this to be a very high-scoring game. Do you know what the over-under is for points in this game?
50.
50. So 50, I think it will be well over 50.
Yeah, I think one thing that one thing I was analyzing this week, I kind of looked at it was, these kind of amoeba defenses that, you're playing your man, but your eyes are on the QB, right? Mm-hmm. And we know how he can hurt. Now you look at these QB design runs and draws. Jackson, number 1 in the NFL, 88 for 637, 7.2 average, 6 TDs. Allen, 5th, only 35 for 195.4 per and 4 TDs, but not as much likely in 28 in 2019, 46, and in 2018, 47. So he's reducing the amount he is running. So I disagree with your super fan there, Pod. But the key for me is the sideline passing. When Jackson's poor at it, he's got to stay in the middle of the field, right? He's ranked 33rd with 90 attempts when he throws outside the markers. Now, if you can't throw outside the markers and keep them honest, everybody is centered towards the middle of the field, and that gives you a better chance to contain Jackson.
Mm-hmm.
And I think right now on the offensive end, Daboll, he's got the full playbook. And, again, here's one key thing. Both teams, are high in missed tackles and penalties. 135 missed tackles in Baltimore, second in the league. 109 penalties. Buffalo, 127 missed tackles, sixth in the league. But all in all, the Buffalo Bills are the better passing team. And this is 2021, gents. And if Allen continues to shed that 2018, 2019 nutcase freak show that he sometimes is, the better passing quarterback wins in this league, dating back to the original stats of quarterback rating differential. The Bills rule the day if they pass the ball effectively.
Yep.
What is the injury report, James?
Starting with Baltimore, Marcus Peters shows up with a back injury. He didn't participate in practice on Wednesday. He's listed as questionable. I do expect him to play. The other cornerback, Devontae Harris, he is out, was out with a thigh, designated to return this week. Matthew Judon and DJ Fluker are both listed as questionable for the game. Judon has an illness, was a non-participant in Tuesday's practice, but that's not COVID related, so keep an eye on that.
He'll be fine.
For the Buffalo, yeah, I know. For the Buffalo Bills, Tremaine Edwards, the linebacker, has a hamstring injury. Stephon Diggs, nursing the oblique. And Cole Beasley, a knee. All of them are listed as questionable. Other names showing up on the injury report include Ed Oliver, Justin Zimmer, and Daryl Johnson.
By the way, Zach Moss is out.
He is out. They did.
TJ Yeldon will be playing in his place.
Elevated from the practice squad. Yeah, Freeman won't be playing, though, because he's on a practice squad. And they can't move him from the practice squad to the active roster that quickly.
Oh, there you go. Doc, before we move to the Sunday games, do you have a recipe for us this week?
Well, I think by the time we get to Sunday night, I'm going to be either ODing on alcohol or sugar. So I will leave you with my favorite. I don't pass this recipe off too much. I don't know if you've ever had one, but this week's recipe is for the sugar inclined slutty brownies. Hey, Doc, what are slutty brownies? Tell me, please.
Yes.
Slutty brownies are chocolate chip cookie dough on the bottom level. Then you top the next level with Oreo cookies and then a layer of fudge. They are to die for.
These don't sound so much like brownies as much as they sound like a ginormous, delicious cookie.
I've also got to say, Doc, there's a real sad lack of actual cooking going on in that recipe.
I know.
That's just stacking stuff on top of stuff.
Well, you got to make You got to make the brownies.
Be quiet, Scotsman.
Oh, okay.
This does sound very intriguing. This does sound like something that I will quite enjoy.
They are good, Pod. They are good. Trust me. I usually make them on New Year's Eve, but it's trying to eat them 5 hours before dinner because the hypoglycemic index goes off the skids. There's a lot of sugar and there's a lot of upkeep just to calm yourself down before dinner. And do not feed.
Sounds like diabetes in a pan.
You got it, brother.
Well, listen, you guys know how alcoholics, they tend to develop sort of an immunity to the alcohol. That's why they got to drink more and more and more. Yeah, that's me and sugar. My body has developed an immunity to sugar. So, you can feed me all the sugar you want. It ain't going to affect me.
No, Pod, that's not how that works.
Oh, it's 100% how it works.
It's not how that works. Just go see a doctor.
I have seen a doctor. I got my physical just last year. I'll be seeing him again in March. That'll be fantastic. All right, to the Sunday games.
A doctor or a vet?
I don't know how to answer that one, so I'm going to let it go. The Cleveland Browns are at the Kansas City Chiefs, 3:05 p.m. on CBS. The Browns are 11th in the power rankings. The Chiefs are number 1. Vegas has the Chiefs by 10. No, Vegas. That is not right. Weather in this one, no weather. High of 40 degrees, and it will be breezy. 13 mile per hour winds, but that shouldn't be too much of a problem. Let's see here. The Chiefs, with a win, would become the first team since the 2002-2004 Philadelphia Eagles. Oh, by the way, their head coach was Andy Reid, too, to host 3 consecutive conference championship games. Do the Browns have a chance? Well, in their favor, the Browns have the 3rd best red zone offense, 73.6% this season, while Kansas City's defense is dead last, 76.6%. So the Browns need to get into the red zone, which they kept as the red zone and not the slime zone on Nickelodeon. Against the Browns, however, is everything else. Their defense ranks 29th in DVOA against both deep passes and third down throws, while ranking 30th against tight ends. That's per Aaron Schatz of the Football Outsiders. Kansas City tight end Travis Kelce, oh, by the way, just set a record for receiving yardage in a season. Furthermore, the Chiefs rank 1st in passing yardage, 3rd in passing touchdowns, tied for 2nd in yards per play. I'm quoting Matt Vadarame, who's quoting Aaron Schatz. That's how this thing works. We're all going to take the Kansas City Chiefs in this one. So once again, Baker Mayfield, no one's giving you a chance. We're all picking against you. Use it to your advantage as you will. Neil, is there anything else you want to say here to give the Browns any slight hope?
Well, no, I think we've had slime zone and red zone. They're going to be in the dead zone come the end of this game. What I would say is that, hey, congratulations to the Browns, one of those teams who hadn't been in the playoffs or won a playoff game for decades, whatever it was. They've done it. Congratulations, and now get back in your box. Wait for next year, because you're not going to beat the Chiefs in Kansas. As much as I'd like the Browns to win, I just can't see. I'm trying to look at the different units on the field, and I can't see a single unit that I think is better than any of the Chiefs units, Jay. That doesn't happen very often, but I just can't see it here.
It bodes well, guys. Cleveland, look what happened with Bitonio last week, and then Conklin after the first quarter. Michael Dunn, the replacement, lost the final. These guys had a bunch of bloody refrigerator repairmen. I mean, not even. And they kept the league's best pass rush off of Baker. And they still rushed for 127. They kept Mayfield clean. So they can keep Chris Jones off of Mayfield, and they can run a balanced offense. They're going to be able to run the ball, I think, against Kansas City. And if they keep Chris Jones off, they can keep a nice balanced offense. Now, Kansas City hasn't blown anybody out in 2 months. Right? They're winning by the hair of their chinny chin chin. But you just know it could be 24-10 in the fourth quarter. And then Mr. Magic Man puts on his hat and off they go. 4 touchdowns in 5 minutes. It's just that explosive. If you look at the last time Mayfield and Mahomes met, do you guys know these stats in 2016? 66-59, Oklahoma. Mayfield, 545 yards, 7 touchdowns.
Yeah, Oklahoma, Texas Tech.
And Superman, he passed the ball 88 attempts, 734 yards, 5 touchdowns. I'm not saying it's going to be that this time, but these are the 2 worst defenses in the playoffs, and so anything can happen. But again, I think that the key there is that Mahomes and Kelce and company still have that magic. And listen, it's technically a bye. It was coming off a bye week, and you know what Reed is like coming off a bye week.
He's very good.
Yeah, so I just think there's way too much. I don't think the Browns are equipped enough to upset them. I think there's only 3 teams left in the playoffs that can beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and the Browns ain't one of them.
James, your turn.
Yeah, I just want to touch on the stat that you read about Travis Kelce. He did that in 16 games, by the way. 15 games. He missed week 17. He didn't play at all with that receiving stat. So take that for what it's worth. I'd love to give the Browns a solid chance. I think the 10 points is a bit much. If they play their normal game and don't buy into their own hype like they've been prone to do, and look, I get beating Pittsburgh, and the way they beat Pittsburgh is probably instilling an uber amount of confidence into them right now, and they're probably feeling themselves as far as they can go out and beat anybody. And yeah, normally that's true. You go out, any given Sunday, any team can win a game. But the cosmic forces that played in that game against Pittsburgh Sunday night, of them being up 28-0. I mean, like literally everything that broke in their favor for that to happen, for that first quarter score to be like that. The odds of that happening again is like being bit by a shark, struck by lightning, and winning the lottery all in the same day. Yeah, so I don't know how the Browns – look, you've already touched on the defense not being that great. And my concern is how well do they hold up if the Chiefs come out and on their first 2 drives score touchdowns? Because now you're stressing not only their defense, you're stressing their offense to keep up. And if the Chiefs don't punt on either the first 2 drives or, hell, the first 3, the Browns can be in trouble because they're not the team that's going to match you score for score. They have to get stops. And I mean, look, it's good, and I'll mention this in the injury report, that getting the corners back off from the COVID list, so Denzel Ward would be available. But the Chiefs are stretched. They don't. The way they beat defenses is by stressing them with the talent they have on the field. So yeah, there's speed. There's power. The dual threat of almost every running back on the roster. If Kelsey stays in, that's throwing off a linebacker's assignment. Now he's not going out for a route, so the linebacker doesn't know what to do because, the guy I was covering is now blocking. Do I get the back? Do I drift in zone? Do I help out on the wide receiver? Whatever he does is going to be the wrong choice.
James, that's all well and good, but who does Elizabeth have in this game?
I can tell you.
So I can get with the injury report.
Well, hang on. Before you go to injuries, you got one question for you guys. Do you think that they're 3 weeks off now? They've been sitting down for 3 weeks.
Sure.
Like a double bye.
Yeah.
You ever see somebody come out of a 3-week layoff and just tear it up in the first quarter? I can't remember any team.
No, but if there was a team that's going to do it, it's the
Gates. Yeah. So it's always you got to handicap that. I know it's so hard because they're so damn good. So. Yeah.
By the way, our Kansas City Chiefs superfan Nick writes, the Browns, arguably the hotter team going into this game after scorching the Steelers twice in a row, but they faced a lot of factors in their wildcard game that they are just not going to see against the Chiefs. Chiefs tied for the 4th fewest turnovers given up in the league, and even when we've seen them struck by a cluster of bad plays and fall to a deficit, as they did a year ago in this round, they come roaring back in a way that few teams can match. It feels like the Chiefs haven't played up to their full potential all season. I think that's in part because they've had all of their real goals for this year wrapped up in the postseason and the possibility of repeating. For Kansas City, the season has just begun, and I'd expect we'll see the best version of this team we've seen all year. Chiefs have also been banged up, which is why the 2-week bye for starters will be big for them. Not all will be returning, however. Most notably, right tackle Mitch Schwartz is still out with a bad back, and both his replacement, Mike Remmers, and left tackle Eric Fisher are dealing with back issues as well. This gets us to the pivotal matchup of the game, which is the team's pass rush against the opponent's ailing O-lines. Pretty much the only defensive approach that has shown any consistency in slowing Mahomes down is getting pressure with 4 while taking away some of the Chiefs' favorite route concepts on the back end. Few teams have the personnel to actually accomplish this when the Chiefs are healthy, so how limber the O-line looks early is going to be a big indicator of how this game is going to go. On the other side of the ball, Baker was able to escape the Steelers' pass rush last week with a quick, short passing game. Chiefs are going to need to take those screens and slants away and make Baker hold it longer to get the pass rush involved. Expect to see Honey Badger absolutely all over the field. Pretty much no result out of this game would surprise me, but I'm expecting an efficient day at the office for the Chiefs, who take it 33-27. So another high-scoring game that will definitely be within the 10 points. I sort of agree with that score even. I think I'm going to take the Chiefs to win. There's no way I wouldn't, but I'm definitely not giving up 10 points. I will take the Browns and the points for sure.
Cool. Cleveland 29th on deep ball, 29th on third down, 28th versus tight ends. Death, grief, and sorrow. Oh, Brownies with the points. Yep.
James, hit us with the injury report.
The Kansas City Chiefs have Sammy Watkins with a calf injury, didn't practice on Wednesday. He's listed as questionable. Clyde Edwards-Helaire should be available for this game. Remember, the last game he played was against the Saints, who he injured his ankle and hip. He was limited on Wednesday and listed as questionable. And tight end Deion Yelder is also questionable for the game as well. For the Browns, David Njoku is nursing a hamstring injury. He won't practice on Thursday. Other Brownies showing up: center J.C. Treader, defensive tackle Sheldon Richardson, guard Wyatt Teller, defensive end Myles Garrett. They're all listed as questionable. They did place Michael Dunn and Robert Jackson on injury reserve, calf and hamstring respectively. And their top two corners, Denzel Ward and Greedy Williams should be not Greedy Williams, Denzel Ward and blanking on the other guy should be available this week. They're coming off the COVID list.
This is almost going to be like, I mean, if Kansas City play well, it's going to be like Doc's recipe, isn't it? They're going to be covered in crushed Oreos and caramel sauce by the end of the game. The Brownies.
I like that.
Food references are good.
That was well done. Yeah. Sunday night at 6:40 p.m. on Fox
and the History Channel.
And the History Channel. It is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at the New Orleans Saints. No weather report because they play in a dome. Wouldn't have mattered anyway. The Buccaneers 6th. The Saints are 4th. The Saints favored by 3 points in this particular game. This is the first postseason game in NFL history to feature two opposing starting quarterbacks age 40 or older, and their combined age, 85 years and 169 days old on Sunday, is the oldest combined age of opposing starting quarterbacks in a single game, regular season or postseason, in league annals. Tampa Bay quarterback Tom Brady has the most postseason games played with 42, most wins with 31, most passing yards with 11,769, and most passing touchdowns, 75 of any player in NFL history. Drew Brees has the most passing yards per game, 307.8, of any player in NFL postseason history with a minimum of 5 games. He also ranks 3rd in career postseason completion percentage, 67.2 on a minimum of 150 attempts. 5th in postseason passer rating with a 100, a minimum of 150 attempts, and 6th with 36 postseason touchdown passes. Since 1970, teams trying to win a 3-game sweep of a division rival are 13-7. In the 2 wins New Orleans has had over the Buccaneers this season, they have a combined 6 sacks and 16 quarterback hits. The Saints rank 6th in pressure rate, 25.6%, and 8th in sacks, 45. That is why Tampa Bay is going to win. Again, I love giving the stats to and picking against them. I mean, honestly, I can't say other than the fact that it is Tom Brady. He has a multitude of weapons at him, and this is the 3rd time that the Bucs are going to be facing the Saints. It's the only reason why I can give the Bucs any sort of chance. I mean, I don't foresee, or at least it's hard for me to see, Tom Brady and the Bucs trying to do the exact same thing in their 3rd matchup against the Saints. They got to do something different, and I expect that they will do something different this time around.
Okay. Does that something different involve pressure up the middle? Because as you know, having had this guy quarterback your squad for 20 years, pressure up the middle is how you stifle Tom Brady. You do know that a key lineman for the Buccaneers in that middle is not going to play this week. And the Saints like getting pressure up the middle?
Listen, you can say all you want about that, but the Bucs are going to figure it out. They have. I mean, to me, I look at what they did last week. Right, Rob Gronkowski, the great Rob Gronkowski. He got targeted once in that game because he was busy as an extra blocker on the offensive line. I would expect that this time around, they're not going to leave him in there as much of as a blocker. There's probably going to be a lot more of that. He's in as an extra blocker. Nope, it's a delayed route. And there's the way that Brady gets away from that pass rush.
And the pressure up the middle, because Washington still got to Brady up the middle.
Right. Mm-hmm. I'm telling you, he's going to get the ball out quickly to Gronkowski, to the running backs, to Antonio Bryant. Yes, he's not going to be able to take those shots to Evans and Godwin in that mid to deep part of the field. They're going to have to do quick, short things. They're going to have to run the ball to keep that pass rush in check. Just like we mentioned earlier with Aaron Donald, the way to keep the pass rush in check is to keep running the ball. They're going to have to do that quite a bit. It's their only shot to go up against the Saints. Let's hear from the Saints fan, Doc, who I know is taking the Saints here, but let's hear from him.
I was just trying to change my luck. Look, when the Saints are favored by less than 5, unbelievable record. Since 17 versus the Bucs, they are 4-0, have covered and scored 31 a game. All right. Now, pretty much both sides of the ball. Here's the keys to the game. The Saints have competent people across the board on that defensive line. Yes, they've hassled Brady a lot, but Brady is benefited by the referees more than any quarterback in NFL history. Right? Think about this. The amount of roughing the passer, defensive holds, etc. Right? So it's going to come down to the referees in this game too. But number one, if you've got Trey Hendrickson, one of the top 3 best pass rushers in the league this year, healthy and on the outside, you move Davenport inside with a very healthy Malcolm Jenkins who can get that pressure, and then a perennial All-Pro on the side, Cameron Jordan, and you can rush 4. But more importantly, you can, if you can't get to Brady up the middle, you take a 6'6" Davenport and get the damn hands up in the air. Gronk is not fast enough to evade somebody like Malcolm Jenkins within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. I think they're going to have him block his ass off, and they're going to have to, because Gardner Johnson is back and healthy. He likes to blitz off the slot. Somehow, they've got to get pressure on Breeze. Somehow, they've got to get pressure on Brady. Whoever does will win this game. Michael Thomas is back. This team is as healthy as it's ever been. There's no reason this team shouldn't win by a touchdown. If everybody plays, the talent level, team to team, favors the Saints. They are top 1 and 2 in DVOA. They are better top to bottom than the Chiefs and the Green Bay Packers when they're healthy. But one of them's got to go. I say, who gets the pressure, who gets the knockdowns, who gets the defensive pressure rate wins this game. You cannot beat Brady or Breeze or Rodgers if you don't get them off their perch. And I'll tell you something, that the one thing that the Bucs, my friend, you could be right, because our kicker has somehow hit the skids after being a perennial All-Pro. We got a 50-50 kicker. But so the Bucs haven't missed a field goal, I think, since October, but they've also missed 4 or 5 extra points. So the kickers on both ends could be a question mark. But you got to get to Brady. You got to get to Breeze. Whoever has the freer lanes, the weapons are there. Look at the Saints have got 6 weapons to throw to. So do the Bucs. This is as evenly matched a game as there is this weekend. It's going to be funny. And again, that whole can't beat a team 3 times in one season is bull crap. But this is the GOAT. This is the GOAT.
It's
What's
13
that?
and 7. It's 13 and 7.
66 or whatever it is. So, but this is the GOAT. This is the GOAT. Tom Brady is the greatest of all time. Drew Brees, the most prolific passer of all time. The GOAT wins on most cards, and I can see that. So it's who is going to get motivated by any means necessary to get the pressure. The Saints are going to have to treat Tom Brady like they treated Brett Favre. I hate to quote Greg Williams.
No, don't do it.
But my point is, you got to knock him over. You don't need to sack him. You got to knock him down, high, low, whatever it is, And same with Breeze. They got to get, these are the great quarterbacks of all time, the two most prolific passers of all time. You got to get to them. If you don't, you lose the game. Who wins the line of scrimmage? The big freaking uglies wins this game. That's it.
Well, but you just mentioned, if you're going to beat up Brady, no one whines to the referees and gets the calls better.
Gets the calls more than him.
Than Tom Brady. I have our Saints superfan Chris here, who has a few things to also respond to what you said, Doc. But I'm wondering what your response will be when I tell you Neil has locked in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Good job, Neil.
Thank you. I'm sitting there listening to Doc and sort of dozing off to sleep at some points there, but I managed to catch most of it, Doc. What I would say is, Doc's right. I mean, if you take away the quarterbacks from this game, the Saints are the better team in most departments in this game. They're better than most teams in the league in this department, and in most departments of the game. They're good, but you can't pass on them. And what I would say is, when it comes to the quarterbacks, then I had the misfortune of having to sit through a Brady game last week against my team, and I got to say, I kind of felt by the end of the season he would have lost his velocity, he would have lost his touch, just because he's an old guy. But actually, he played his touch, his velocity, and he played really well against Washington. And that offensive line for Tampa Bay, I mean, they have looked shaky at times this year, but they played really well.
They played well last week, yeah, absolutely.
Did, yeah. So if they can pull that off, I have Brady way, way, way ahead of Breeze in terms of play on the field in the latter part of this season. And I think that will be the key to the game. I think Brady's going to win this game for the Bucks. And obviously, I mean, you guys come up with some stats for the when two teams play each other 3 times in a season. I mean, after the Pittsburgh and Cleveland game, I have it as 14-8 towards the 3-game sweep. So you guys, what, 13-7 or 14-7 or something you had? If that's
Pittsburgh didn't sweep Cleveland.
No, exactly. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I had it as 14-8. But anyway, whatever it is, there's a chance of it. And remember, the Saints have beaten the Buccaneers 5 times in a row, and the Buccaneers have only won 5 of the last 14 games between the two teams. So everything points to the Saints. But I was just so impressed with Brady last.
Well, and here's the other thing, Neil. This year it's the GOAT, so you're always handicapping the conversation. He had never been beaten 2 times in a row the same season, been skunked by another team in their division until this year, right? Yep. And again, can you beat the GOAT this many 3 times in a row? I don't know. But the fact is, I think one of the critical things here is the Saints have been their own worst enemy. It's either Sean Payton's play calling, the stupid-ass zebras, or the rookie, like what happened in the Minneapolis Miracle. It's always something. I don't know what that always something is, but I'll tell you that the zebras are going to be crucial because the Bucs are beneficiaries of 24 defensive pass interference calls this year, 5 more than any other team. And Brady's going to get the call.
Here we go.
Yep.
So, Saints fan, starting to talk pass interference. Fantastic.
Well, no, they lead the league. Saints lead the league. Yeah. Saints are horrible in defensive pass interference and roughing the passer and all that. So it's perfect
Doc,
for them.
To your point about the pass interference, Marshawn Lattimore and Mike Evans get to renew their relationship as best friends on Sunday.
Yeah, I know. He shut him down, but can you shut him down 3 times in a row?
I was talking about the fist fights they normally get into every single game.
But you also, James, remember, let's just say that the Lattimore against Evans is a pretty even battle overall.
Yeah.
Are you talking? What are you talking? PJ Williams against Godwin or Antonio Brown? That's a mismatch.
No.
I've got Chris. Chris has written up his thoughts on this particular game. Our Saints superfan who mentions the few matchups that he's concerned about is really Ndamukong Suh versus rookie guard Cesar Ruiz. Mm-hmm. Ruiz, who was a stud center in college, has turned out to be a pretty subpar guard. This is Chris's words. Suh could create pressure in the middle of the line, as Hicks did for Chicago early on in the last week's game. Lattimore, he has shutting down Evans every matchup, and that should continue this week. Chauncey matches up well with Godwin, but the last few games, which leaves Janoris Jenkins on Antonio Bryant, and that is one of the matchups we don't know how it will shake out. Jenkins has been the Saints' best corner this year and should fare well, but Antonio Brown still has the speed to get deep. All in all, he says it's a game the Saints should win, but it's the playoffs against a division rival. Ask the Steelers. They'll tell you anything can happen.
And remember, last week we saw the Saints against Chicago, and Chicago, because that guy didn't drop the touchdown, did he? He just went straight through his hands for Chicago. That could have been a bit more of a stickier game than it actually turned out. I thought
you think even without that, you think about this, Neil. If it wasn't for that last 99-yard drive with the walk-off one-handed catch, Trubinsky had 100 yards. That Saints D shut down everything that they could do well.
But you did play down to them. I mean,
you can only play who you can play. But you're right; it was too close at halftime. But they found their groove. And listen, regarding Ruiz, he is a question mark. And Ndamukong Suh is nothing but average, but he can beat Ruiz. But Ruiz offered one pressure. All right. So the thing is it's about who protects. And look what the Minnesota coach did to them last year in the wild card. Played the splits off the ball, get off the ball by a yard, a little bit of amoeba, and rush the center and get Drew Brees off his perch, and it eventually cost him in the fourth quarter. Sean has been out-coached, though he is a handicap.
Yeah, his handicap is not making adjustments during the game.
Yep.
All right, James, hit us with the injury report.
All right, starting with the Buccaneers, linebacker Kevin Minter and guard Alex Kappa, they're both out. Minter was placed on the COVID list, and Kappa suffered a fractured ankle against Washington. Wide receivers Mike Evans and Chris Godwin, knee and hip respectively, they're questionable. Of course, they'll both play. Running back Ronald Jones, quad injury. He is practicing on Thursday, so he is expected to play. Carlton Davis, the quarterback, inner thigh injury. Jason Pierre-Paul, knee injury. Both of them are questionable. They are expected to play as well. On the New Orleans side, Traquan Smith was designated for return from the injured reserve list due to his ankle injury earlier this season. Jared Cook, Latavius Murray, Taysom Hill, back, quad, and knee, respectively, are all questionable but expected to play. Teron Armstead, offensive tackle, Trey Henderson, and cornerback Patrick Robinson are also listed as questionable. They should be suiting up as well.
Before we jump into the second half of the show where we talk about the non-playoff teams and some of the potential head coaching hirings and GM hirings, one note that was tweeted out by Field Yates: Pete Carmichael of the Saints and Josh McDaniels of the Patriots are the only offensive coordinators to be with their current team since before 2018. So there's every other team, 30 NFL teams, has had turnover at the offensive coordinator position in the last 3 years.
And when is McDaniels being announced as a Texans head coach?
Yeah, that'll come sooner or later.
Oh boy.
All right, let's jump into the non-playoff team conversations. We will start. I like to do this in order of draft order. So we will start with Jacksonville. As we mentioned, there has not been an official hiring as of this recording, but it is expected that Urban Meyer will be the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. And as I have said on, I think, the last 2, maybe even 3 podcasts in a row, that's what not getting better looks like. Congratulations, Jacksonville. You'll be right back here in 3 years.
2.
They don't even get out of this spot over the next 3 years, quite honestly.
I know it's going to be, you guys are going to poo-poo immediately, but do you think there's any chance at all that Urban Meyer takes Justin Fields over Trevor Lawrence?
Oh, God, no way. No way. No way.
That's my quarterback.
Oh, you can have him, dude. Are you kidding me? You want to take a wide out, take a cornerback from Ohio State. Take a quarterback, then I got a coupon for the Orchid of Asia Spa in Palm Beach for you.
But I understand the relationship there.
I was speaking of Urban Meyer. Yeah. I wouldn't take Fields.
I get the relationship, but there's no way Urban Meyer can think that Josh Fields is better than or Justin.
No, he said this morning that he picked at the beginning of the year. He said he was better than Fields. So I would assume, what's changed.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I mean, why Jacksonville of all of the candidates that you had available to you? Because on top of it, I mean, Did they hire? They haven't hired a GM yet in Jacksonville, so I would expect Urban Meyer is going to have some say or control over that particular hire too. I mean, this is God.
Well, their owner did
Everywhere
say,
that Urban Meyer has gone, he has shown some reasonable success, but he's also shown a dramatic. Every team that he's touched has shown a dramatic decline after that success has been achieved.
remember, Jay, that a couple of weeks ago, Shad Khan did say that he wanted to continue to be a full participant in sort of dealing with team matters with the GM. So that's not a very attractive proposition, is it? So you imagine Meyer will have full control. I would guess full control with the owner.
I don't like it. I don't like it. Yeah, I feel bad for Trevor Lawrence because he's going to be wasted for 3 years.
Well, there's worse things than life than being wasted for 3 years, let me tell you.
Hey, we thought the same thing about last year's Heisman winner, and look what he did in Cincinnati this year with no line. We don't know.
I mean, he got his ACL broken by Washington. So.
Eventually,
yeah.
The next team, at least chronologically by draft order, would be the Atlanta Falcons.
The Jets.
What do you have on the Jets, my friend?
Hope. That's what we have on the Jets.
Okay. Thanks for reporting on the hope of the New York Jets. That's fantastic.
Is there nothing at all about the Jets? Nothing. I mean, they've interviewed what?
Nothing. They let Saleh walk away. They had Saleh in the building. They flew him in and let him fly down to Florida to meet with the ownership, Jeffrey Lurie in Florida, owner of the Philadelphia Eagles. And that's where he went.
I wouldn't take Saleh either. I don't like him.
Well, I don't want Saleh as the head coach of the New York Jets. I like Saleh. I just don't think the Jets is a fit for him.
Probably not, but I mean, you had the guy, and I thought that was going to be the guy when they had him in the facility. But the moment they let him go, I was like, well, he's not going to be the Jets head coach. If he is later on, sure. We know Doug Peterson was let go on Monday. Maybe a couple of teams want to interview Peterson at this juncture. Maybe the Jets want to do their, quote, due diligence and interview all the qualified people. But I think for them, Saleh is probably the guy they wanted, but they let him walk away. So I don't know how this plays out. Because they did the same thing last year with Cliff Kingsbury. They let him leave their facility, and he got to Arizona, and
that was a good decision.
Yeah, I mean, obviously.
Yeah. I had not slotted New York Jets talk today, so let's move on. All right,
just there's one thing to add though, Jay. When you talk about these head coaching candidates, what's also very important, I think, for teams is who they're bringing with them as coaches. You know, because Saleh obviously is a defensive guy, but it'll be very interesting to see who he'd bring along with him as OC, because that's. And likewise, if you've got an offensive coach who they're bringing as DC.
Well, they did Arthur Smith twice too. So,
in Atlanta, their current general manager, the favorite for the general manager job in Atlanta is Terry Fontenot.
Terry Fontenot. That's almost done at this point.
And that is because Brad Holmes, who was also a major candidate for them, ended up becoming the new general manager in Detroit. So we'll tie those two stories together there. So Detroit now has a new general manager. My guess is that a new head coach probably won't be too far behind. In Philadelphia, let's take a pause here, James. As you mentioned, you had another lovely rant about the Eagles on a Tuesday.
We said we weren't going to do this.
Another one.
Pass, but no. Why I want to stay with the Eagles after they fired head coach Doug Peterson is their head coaching interviews are quite interesting.
Interesting? That's the word you're going to use?
They have requested to speak to Todd Bowles, the Buccaneers defensive coordinator. They have interviewed Joe Brady, the Panthers offensive coordinator, who, by the way, Neil, I was with you. I think Joe Brady should have ended up in Jacksonville. That's where Jacksonville made a mistake.
Yep, me too.
They are planning on interviewing Robert Saleh. They have scheduled an interview with Titans offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, but they are also planning on interviewing Patriots inside linebackers coach Gerard Mayo. Now, this one comes out of nowhere. Why in the world would they want to talk to Gerard Mayo, who's only been the inside linebackers coach, quote unquote, for 2 seasons now with New England?
Why do they want to talk to Kellen Moore? Huh?
I think
you're expecting answers. Gerard Mayo, I have no freaking idea where that came from. Last I heard, he wasn't even a coaching candidate on any level whatsoever. So I don't know who in the front office is making these decisions. Again, this is why I said on our show Tuesday, this is why Howie Roseman should have been fired as well, because of stuff like this. The Kellen Moore thing, again, what I said on Tuesday, they're trying more and more to implement what didn't work in Dallas. So I don't understand how you're trying to repeat everything that failed in Dallas with Jason Garrett as head coach, but this is where the Eagles are going right now.
The interesting thing for me with the Eagles, I guess, is there's no word of Eric Bieniemy getting an interview. I thought he would have been a, guy for that.
Fun stuff with Eric.
Oh, trust me. He's only being mentioned by the fans on Sports Talk Radio in Philadelphia because he is, who would you want to see as the next coach of the Eagles? Folks call in. Obviously, they said Saleh, and yes, they've mentioned Eric Bieniemy. Kafka's come up as well. But, those are all ties to Andy Reid, and, there's some inkling that they may head back to that well of Andy Reid disciples, if you will, but just get them directly from Kansas City as opposed to whoever's floating around out there.
Yeah. But do you think this job in Philadelphia, James, is tied to if you're coming in here, you've got to go with Wentz and not Hurts?
Oh, absolutely. And again, this is what I mentioned earlier this week. Wentz, quote, winning this rift between him and Peterson was a happy byproduct. The real beef here, if you will, was between Peterson and Roseman Won that battle.
My question,
what it came down to.
So you say that, James, but this would be what reasonable person evaluates the Eagles' performances this season and says, "Oh yes, Carson Wentz is definitely the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia."
Nobody.
The accountant.
Let's put it this way: I don't think anybody who is a former offensive coach, whether coordinator, quarterbacks coach, whoever it is that they're bringing in. None of those offensive people can look at it and evaluate Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts' performances with basically the same talent and seeing how Hurts performed and Wentz performed and say, I want to go with Carson Wentz. There's no way you can say that, especially if you have an offensive background. If you say that, then you must have like the secret formula to the anti-life equation for dark side or something. You must know something the rest of humanity doesn't know as a whole. Because fixing Carson Wentz at this point after year 5, it is I don't know how that gets done, honestly. Unless you're going to commit to a heavy running game, which is what most defensive coaches tend to do. The first thing defensive coordinators or former defensive coordinators do when they become head coach, they find an offensive coordinator who is going to commit to running the football.
So, James, when you had supervision with Elizabeth this week, how much of the time was spent speaking about the Eagles' head coaching position?
None.
Neil, as a team that released your former number 1 draft choice, is there any way Philadelphia can hold both those quarterbacks on the roster next season?
Yeah. Well, there is because Hurts isn't getting paid a hell of a lot. He was a second round pick, James. He's not getting a lot of money, so he's not. He's really
he's not.
Oh,
he's
financially, sure, but
if I'm allowed to finish,
from a locker room standpoint.
I mean, James just waffled on for like 20 minutes, and I get like 10 seconds. Jeez. I would say from a locker room point of view, yes, I don't see why not. I don't see any issues with keeping both of them. The problem is, Jay, for me, would be if Hurts is a starter, then why have you got your $100 and whatever it is $1 million quarterback sitting there on the bench? That's a terrible look and probably not a great thing for the locker room. And I think Wentz is the sort of guy who's going to go off on one, isn't he? If he's not the starter, he looks like a pouter.
He is a powder. And my thing is, I don't understand how you raised hell and was pissed off about getting benched when you played like trash all year. I'm sorry, for 12 games.
Mm-hmm. I would say, though, in Wentz's defense, he hasn't done as well since Reich left, and maybe the offense, James will know better, but how much the offense has changed away from what he was doing. He was a great a great guy for the old RPOs, wasn't he? And that seemed to suit Wentz's game quite a lot. And I don't know how much of that's still in the offensive game plan that you've seen this year.
And Neil, I understand what you're saying, but he didn't really regress that much. I mean, yeah, anytime you have like a stellar season the way he did during our Super Bowl run, there's going to be some drop off. You know, especially that was his second year. You're not going to go up from that. There's going to be a little bit of drop off. In the next two seasons, when we went 9-7 in both years, there was a little bit of drop off, but still, he was at about 4-to-1 touchdown to interception ratio. I think it was like 28 touchdowns to 7 picks in both years.
Yeah.
In 18 and 19, and for whatever reason, this past offseason, Howie Roseman comes in and he messes around with Doug Peterson's coaching staff, and he forces him to hire a passing game coordinator and an offensive consultant. And that's two more voices in Carson Wentz's ear on that mic set, on the headset, every Sunday, talking about which plays we're going to run. So now you got four people.
Yeah, but James, correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, and if I'm misspeaking here, please correct me. But I'm just getting the sense that you might have an issue with the GM.
I've got a huge bone to pick with the GM. I've already gone over this numerous times as far as his poor choices at wide receiver, draft picks that don't pan out and don't impact his roster on either side of the ball. I mean,
wow. James, this really is a family show, and I think you should keep your huge bone to yourself.
But yeah, Roseman should have been fired as well. I'm not upset by Peterson getting fired. I'm not happy about it either. But in the same token, there's no way you're going to fire the guy who's coaching this subpar talent on the field and not fire the guy who picked this subpar talent. Because outside, let's be honest, outside of Miles Sanders, the offensive line and the defensive side.
Please don't go through the entire roster.
Are you going to repeat like your rant from Tuesday? I didn't mean for you to do that.
We are horrible everywhere else.
I mean that 7th round pick in 2019, he just hasn't panned out.
Horrible at linebacker, horrible in the secondary.
Yeah,
mute him now.
And you got Diddley and Cap. You got what, 20 some odd million in cap space, right?
Is trash.
Don't encourage him, Doc. Please.
And that's the GM, not the head coach.
Just to highlight the head scratching decision to want to talk to Gerard Mayo in his 2 seasons as the inside linebackers coach. The first season, he split duties with Stephen Belichick as the play caller. The second season, it was all Stephen Belichick, and the Patriots were one of the least penalized teams in the league this season. But if you look at the penalties they did have, a lot of them were 12 men on the field because the defense had no freaking clue who was supposed to be on the field at what time. And that goes under the quote unquote inside linebackers coach job. So,
yeah, safe to say Jared Mayo is not going to be the new head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles.
Well, if he is, good luck.
He won't be.
Wentz's cap hit would go from 34,673,000 to 33,820,000. That is a savings of 816,000 if he is on a trade block before June 1st. You got Diddley, you got a lot of holes, and you don't have much money, brother.
I know.
You could really shake it up and go for Lincoln Riley. That would give Carson Wentz a bit of a insight into the future, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Listen, Carson Wentz needs to be on a different team. And I know the cap hit doesn't, I know financially it won't make sense, but I just think for the sake of their locker room, he can't be on that team anymore.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Brad Holmes, as I mentioned, is the new general manager in Detroit. Just a quick note on that. I know this was of interest to Neil. The Rams now become the first team to get 2 third-round compensatory picks for a new rule in the collective bargaining agreement where a team loses a minority candidate to a promotion with another team. And that is the case here with Brad Holmes, who was previously with the Rams and is now the general manager of the Detroit Lions.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Atlanta, where's Terry Fontenot? Terry Fontenot is from the Saints, right?
Saints.
Mhm.
Yes, he is.
Mm-hmm.
So the Saints
And the
would
Falcons-
also be in line for this.
4 compensatory picks. Yep.
And I think we talked about this when this rule was made, last year at some point. And I think this is one way of getting that progression because teams will see, third round draft choice. That's a pretty good draft choice. You're expecting some sort of starter from a third round draft choice, and rewarding the teams that way, I think is a good way of helping that progression. And I know it's not the greatest thing in the world because you'd expect people to be progressed because they're good, not because they get a draft choice. But hey, it's something, and it's going to pay off for a number of guys this year. And you never know.
It also helps fill the pipeline of
minority
candidates.
Absolutely, and you never know if a team says, "Okay, I'll take the third round draft choice and take this minority guy." The chances are that minority guy might turn out to be an absolutely stunningly good coach, and it's going to help everybody. So just give them those opportunities. You never know what happens.
Yeah, head coaches are really guys. They're just like first round quarterbacks. It's a 50-50 shot.
Yeah.
Right. You got a magician coming out of Kansas City as an OC. Every single player on that offensive side of Kansas City said how influential he is as a coach and how much he is beloved by the players, as much as Reed. And he doesn't get a sniff last year.
Or the year before.
Something is wrong, and I think I use the term incentivization. Hey, the old business saying, send flowers to the living. You know what I mean?
Not to rehash what I asked James on the Tuesday podcast, but Eric Bieniemy, the word on the street is that he is interviewing very poorly for these open GM positions, and now there's an opening in Philadelphia.
But that was the case last year, Pod, and this is what bothers me.
No, you missed my point there. Oh. There's an opening in Philadelphia now.
Well, look. This is like judging quarterbacks from the long underwear Olympics. Mm-hmm. You got 2-3 years of film and body of work.
Yeah.
Like, let's say Justin Fields has a great combine. Who cares? It's the body of work. And the other thing we don't consider, too, is it's not a natural thing for an offensive coordinator to become a head coach. It's a different kettle of fish altogether. It is overall management versus micro dedicating your life around one side of the ball versus overall team management. And we forget that. You know?
And that's also the other thing to throw into that. I mean, Doc's absolutely right there. The other thing to throw into it, of course, is just circumstance. And often the circumstances are out of the control of these guys, and sometimes everything falls into place, and other times good coaches can be let down. The circumstances aren't great, and that goes back to your quarterbacks as well. We've probably lost a lot of really good quarterbacks in this league just because the circumstances they arrived into just weren't conducive to success. And
did anybody expect Matt LaFleur to be as good as he is right now?
Absolutely, I did. He came from the Washington coaching tree. So he was him and McVay and Shanahan. I mean, it all started.
Too bad the head coach was up there doing nefarious things with the cheerleaders.
Yeah, well, that's another story. I mean, if you want a good coach, then just look to Washington because that's where football starts and finishes.
Denver has a new general manager. It's General George Patton. I'm sorry, different George Patton.
Well, they don't have a new general manager. They have a new PA for John Elway.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, there you go. Dallas has a new defensive coordinator, and that is the former Atlanta head coach Dan Quinn. Going back,
Mike Nolan's being interviewed by Philadelphia,
and we're and I want Kevin to respond to this. What happens to Richard now? Because Richard took over defensive play calling after they fired what's his face with a couple of games left to go in the season, Nolan.
Mm-hmm.
And now they hired Dan Quinn.
I mean, Mike Nolan and Howie Roseman go back a long way.
No, they don't.
Las Vegas hired a new defensive coordinator. It is the man named Gus Bradley, formerly of the Denver Broncos and LA Chargers.
Jacksonville? Was he Jacksonville head coach? No. Yes.
Was he Jacksonville?
Was Bradley?
Gus Bradley?
Was he head coach of Jacksonville? Am I making that up entirely?
You might be right. Did I name his previous?
I feel like Gus Bradley was a head coach somewhere.
Yeah, in Denver.
He was the Jaguars head coach. Yes.
Yeah, there we go. I thought so.
Retread. Who knows?
He wasn't a great head coach, but in his time. Now, who did he have real success with? Was that with Seattle or was that with Atlanta? Or somebody had real success as defensive coordinator, didn't he?
Seattle from 2009 to 2012.
Dan Quinn, yeah.
The Legion of Boom.
Yeah, that's right. All that stuff, yeah.
Sorry. He wasn't with Denver. Why did I think he was with Denver? Maybe it was a defensive coordinator with Denver at some point.
I think, Doc kind of touched on it also earlier, that sometimes guys who are coordinators, are great coordinators, are actually just coordinators.
Yes.
And should stick with that, and can be tremendously successful at it. You saw who was the Rams guy, the old Phillips, Phillips' son,
Wade Phillips, yeah.
Wade Phillips, absolutely sensational defensive coordinator for years and years with different teams across the league, and a terrible head coach, but just a fabulous guy who should have stayed.
But he got 2 cracks at it.
Yeah, he did. He should have stayed as a defensive coordinator, and would have been, I'm sure, even greater than he actually turned out to be. Great defensive coach. And you see that a lot in the league.
Chicago's keeping their general manager and head coach, but their defensive coordinator, Chuck Pagano, has decided to call it a career.
Yeah.
Chuck gone.
Chuck Pagano has retired. In Seattle, they will be keeping their general manager, John Schneider. There was reports that he was being courted by other teams to become a general manager. So he's not leaving.
Sorry, I was just laughing at my own joke there. I thought hashtag.
Well, they let go of their offensive coordinator.
What is that, James?
Seattle did let go of their offensive coordinator.
After the last game, there's no question about that.
So they'll be on the market.
Pittsburgh also got rid of their offensive coordinator.
Who's that?
Randy Feichner. Pittsburgh got rid of their offensive coordinator as well.
They got rid of a few guys, didn't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So there's a few more coordinator openings now that some of these teams are out of the playoffs.
I'd stay away from the Pittsburgh OC position because Ben Roethlisberger is, how do I want to put this? He's a head case.
Well, I'll tell you, in Madden, he retires. There are some simulations that have Ben Roethlisberger retiring. Now, I don't think that's going to happen, but I don't put it out of the question. He dances around that all the time. He likes to play that Brett Favre.
I mean, you talk about head cases, James. He hasn't been the same since they had the other head case. What was he called? Todd Haley as offensive coordinator. He was a head case, but Roethlisberger had I think his best time of his career playing under him.
So I found the NFL.com has put up a pretty good tracker here in terms of head coaches interviewing and general managers interviewing and planned interviews and interviews that have been requested. I did forget to add that Bieniemy has been requested to speak with the Houston Texans. A lot of people are making that point. That by the way, Houston, here you go. Oh yes, we want to talk to Eric Bieniemy. Of course, we want to talk to Eric Bieniemy, and a lot of people are making fun of that because they won't be able to talk to him until after the Super Bowl at this point. However, I would like to point out that they are not the only team that has made a late request to speak to Eric Bieniemy. The Chargers also have a request in to speak to Eric Bieniemy that came in late. So if we're going to make as much fun about the Houston Texans, and rightfully so, the Chargers need to be on that list too.
If you were Bieniemy and you had your choice, where would you want to go?
LA.
Yeah, I think that's.
I want no part of whatever's happening.
And they're just throwing Deshaun a bone. You know, all this stuff coming out about he thinks this, he thinks that. We don't know that. Really, a friend of a friend said he's pissed off, and why isn't Bieniemy on the list? Well, do we really know that? And what right-minded organization is going to throw a quarterback in a room and make decisions? On head coach and GM?
Doc, you touched on something really important there because I kind of tend to have the feeling that I'm probably a bit old school. I think a player should shut up and play and let the it's a bit like listening to the fans, you know. If you, as an owner or a coach, you start listening to the fans, then you very soon become one.
Well, I mean, I would consult on him on one thing and say, listen, the way he played at an MVP level with this kind of crap team, I would say, hey, listen, we got to get a new head coach. We don't know whether we're hiring offensive coordinator, D coordinator, special teams coordinator, whatever, or college. But the fact is, what kind of offense do you want to run going forward the next 4 years? Something like that. Generalized questions, I think, is legitimately.
Well, and I think that's where a lot of this comes from, is that the reports are coming out of Houston's organization that he was told he was going to be consulted on the hire. Now, whether he was told, obviously that probably means head coach to everyone on the outside looking in. Whether they gave him any inkling that he would have some type of say in who the GM was going to be is a different story. That now comes a he said type thing. But management did say they were going to consult him about, at least one of those hires. And my guess is head coach, not GM.
And that's the absolute start of the problem. If you start doing that, then you've got to carry it out. I wouldn't do it, but if you do it, you've got to carry that out, or else it just causes trouble. And Houston is just what a basket case. I kind of feel a bit offended because that's Washington's thing. I was thinking, Houston, get your own thing. Yeah, we're the crazy team who does stupid things. Yeah, try and get your own ideas. But no, they've taken it on and running with it. It's incredible.
Yeah, Nick Caserio's got his work cut out for him in Houston to try and fix whatever is going on inside that locker room. It doesn't sound good. The other thing I would add, though, when we're talking about
is the former chaplain.
Can I speak? I was talking.
I just want to make sure he's the former chaplain that we were always clowning.
No, that's Jarek. That's Easterby. That's Jack Easterby.
It's Easterby. Okay.
That's not Caserio.
I think it's Jack Easter Bunny.
Right. That's the name Neil likes to use for him. All right,
go ahead.
The only other thing I'm going to point out here about let's give our quarterback some say in the general manager, or however you want to phrase it. I would point that Deshaun Watson is a younger player, and there's going to be some culture change when it comes to some of these youth athletes as we move forward. Think about what's happening in the NBA, and I'm not saying it's good, but you see a lot of the players in the NBA having a lot of say over what happens in terms of their coach, in terms of what happens to the makeup of their team.
Pathetic.
And I think these younger quarterbacks look at what's happening in the NBA and some of these guys that they run with too, right? They hang out with all these guys and they start getting these ideas in their head that they can do the same thing in the NFL.
Good point.
And that's the sort of thing that I would say, watch for a lot of these younger players as they start developing a brand for themselves in the NFL, trying to do similar things that their cohorts in the NBA are doing. And they'll probably find they won't have the same amount of success, but we'll see.
And my counter to that is, this is why the NFL is always the last sports league to change with the times. That they're always last. They never do anything first. They never adapt quickly enough as an entire league. They're always last.
James, the problem, of course, is that there's 50 odd players on the NFL roster. If you start giving them all a say, I mean, God, where are you going to be?
I understand, but when it comes to changing with the times, the NFL is always the last to do something.
What do you guys think? Okay, just consider. I think it's less than a 30% chance that he gets traded. But if it was on the radar, Deshaun Watson, let's take the first scuttlebutt to the Dolphins. Trade for Tua. People are upset that Tua's not our guy. Whatever. Who cares? Well, I don't know what pundits got to create these off-season stories in repetition over and over and over. It's like, what? Okay, let's say it's true. Where would Deshaun Watson go immediately and be a Super Bowl contender?
Well, I think the first question is who can afford him, because you're talking
right. He just got paid
not the money wise. I'm talking about picks. You're talking 4 first-round draft choices for him. Starts there, doesn't it?
No, I think 2 and 2 and a 2.
It's going to be a boatloat of picks.
Well, I can tell you what.
2 and 2. But are you trading Tua? Are you trading Tua?
No, hold on.
You have to.
Wait. I think what you've got to look at is you've got to take my franchise, for example, Washington. We haven't had a franchise quarterback, a top-level quarterback in the league in my lifetime. Now, that's what? And that's 25 years, clearly.
No, that's not true. You guys had Joe Theismann.
Well, yeah, well, okay. Like, you take Theismann. That's what early 1980s. So you're talking 30 years since they had a franchise quarterback. Three or four first round picks is nothing if it gives you 10 years of top level franchise quarterbacks. I wouldn't trade him. My starting point would be 4 first round picks. Now, whether that's 3 first rounders and Tua, that's a legitimate thing, but I wouldn't go any lower than that. No chance. It's a franchise quarterback. You guys, Jay, you can't really contribute here because you've had a franchise quarterback for 20 years. For teams who haven't had a franchise quarterback, they would give up 4 first-round draft choices without hesitation. Because he's proven.
There's no higher trade value than he's just under Mahomes, I think.
Yeah.
Here's the thing for Houston. Because they don't have their very first pick,
first or
in this
second
upcoming draft isn't until the 3rd round.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And they don't have a first round draft choice next season either.
Nope.
So,
but remember,
Houston could trade Deshaun Watson for a boatload of draft picks, but they have to be
exactly
one of these teams that are in the top 3.
But
so
also,
that they can get a quarterback to replace Deshaun Watson.
Yeah. And the thing you have to add to that is, let's say you get 4 first round picks for him, you're probably guaranteed. History would suggest that 2 of them will hit.
The talk, Neil, is 3, right? So the starting point is 3. You could probably get away with 2 1s and a boatload of 2s. But, he's 25. Exactly. The whole model is to get a quarterback on their first contract and build around it. If that's not possible for the team that's interested in Deshaun,
right.
I'd sell the farm. I'd sell the farm to
get in yet.
What's that?
He just signed the extension this offseason, and I think it kicks in, or last offseason, but it kicks in this offseason, I believe.
Yes, this season
is when the extension kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
So,
I just want to note, going back to the general managers, no team has interviewed more people, or has a more interesting list than the Carolina Panthers. For
Jay, sorry. I don't want to prolong this podcast any further, but with Houston, remember they were an expansion team in 2002. So you're talking about what's that? 20 years of being a franchise, and they finally, after 20 years, got a franchise quarterback. Now that just shows you the value of a franchise quarterback when it takes you 20 years to get one. You don't give them up for a couple of first-round picks and a boatload of seconds. I just don't see it. These franchise quarterbacks are like absolute gold. They're more valuable than gold dust, and you can't do that. It's just like, wow.
So I agree with you, right? But I do think that we as fans tend to I shouldn't say we overvalue them. I think we properly value them, because I agree with you. I don't think Deshaun Watson should go for less than what you're saying. However, he's going to go, if he does go, for less than what you're saying. And we're all going to sit here and be shocked by it. We're going to be like, oh, I can't believe he only went for that. And ultimately, it happens every single time. Mm-hmm. We're like, oh, it should be 2 first rounders. Oh, it actually ends up only being a 2nd round draft choice. Oh, you should be gone for 3 first rounders. Oh, they go 1st round draft choice and maybe a 5th round draft choice, depending on how much time he plays or or how many wins the team gets. It's always something wacky that comes out of nowhere, and it's to a team that you never even thought was in the running for it.
The DeAndre Hopkins trade. Jeez.
Well, that's Bill O'Brien.
Yeah.
That we can take any trade done by Bill O'Brien, you have to
handicap it. Yeah, exactly.
Pod is in the situation they're in anyway because of Bill O'Brien. So everything that's happening right now is a result of his actions.
Pod, you were going to talk about Carolina Panthers GM list.
Yes. It's a long,
I'm still scrolling.
It's a long list.
Like
they have named finalists. They have named finalists. Their finalists are Scott Fitterer, the Seahawks Vice President of Football Operations, Monty Austinfort, the Titans Director of Player Personnel, Adam Peters, the 49ers VP of Player Personnel, Ryan Poles, who's a guy that I had mentioned from Good Morning Football a couple weeks ago, the Chiefs Assistant Director of Player Personnel. Those are your finalists for the Panthers job, but they interviewed way more than that.
Oh, yeah.
An extensive list, much more extensive than the list that the Houston Texans had, and then ultimately went with a guy that the firm didn't even give them. So just saying, if you want to see how it's done properly, Carolina might be doing it right.
Mm-hmm.
Although they're hiring their general manager after they hired a head coach. That's the wrong way to do it. Just saying. Any case, I do believe we have come to the end of the show today. I have a list. I took a quick peek at free agency and some of the players that are going to be available in free agency, but we have a whole offseason.
Oh, yeah.
To get into that sort of stuff. So I think we can call it a show, gentlemen.
Just one last question.
Oh,
yeah.
No. This is a legitimate question. We assume that at some point today it's going to be announced Meyer and the Jaguars had their deal in place. They're the coach. I'm looking at the GM list. Jacksonville has completed interviews with 4 people. Ray Farmer, former Browns GM, Jerry Reese, former Giants GM, Louis Riddick, current ESPN analyst and former Eagles director of player personnel, and Rick Smith, former Texas GM. Of these 4, who do you think they hire?
Rick Smith.
I would just say, who's the whitest?
Unfortunately.
Well, if you're Urban Myers, it's who doesn't have a domestic record.
Oh, man, you guys are just nailing all of them here.
I mean, he's going to coach 2 years and then he's going to retire because of his health. We know that.
What do you think, James?
Look, I like that I'm seeing Louis Riddick's name pop up on several of these teams, but I think he's just being interviewed for the sake of being interviewed to say that they, interviewed a minority candidate.
I don't know. I think someday he's going to be a GM.
I like
someday he is, but I don't think it's going to be this offseason because, again, I only see his name popping up on, 3 of these teams so far.
But James, maybe the question is more who is going to take that GM job, because it's not going to be a real GM job, is it?
In Jacksonville?
Yeah.
Depends what's in his contract, right?
Yeah.
It's going to be the report.
That's why I don't think that's why I said Rick Smith. Because if I look at these guys, Ray Farmer is a former GM, Jerry Reese is a former GM, and Rick Smith is a former GM, but he's a former GM of the Texans. And he was knocked out by Bill O'Brien. Which of these guys, like Neil said, is going to be willing to take the job and understand that it's a job by title only? Title only, yeah. It's not. It doesn't come with the real powers of general manager. That's why I don't think Louis Riddick will take the job. And it's why I do think Rick Smith probably fits the bill the best.
Jerry Reese, he's definitely not giving up power, especially not what he did within New York.
That's right.
I would listen, Neil. You can have an impact on this, brother. I think it's time that they look at a premiership general manager.
Oh, wow.
Hire a soccer coach.
Yeah,
we're gonna do the what was that?
Why not?
What was that show with the SNL?
Yeah, it's still on.
We're going to do the reverse of that? Is that
reverse of that? Yeah, well, because they're going to be over in the UK eventually. Right? So.
And what I would say is I have a personal liking of Louis Riddick. I always think he speaks very well and sensibly, and I like a lot of what he says. So I would hope that when he does get his chance, and I think he will get his chance eventually, that he gets a fair chance and a fair shot to be a GM. I just don't see that in Jacksonville. I just don't.
I loved him in his previous job. I'm not a big Monday Night Football, him on Monday Night Football guy. I like the old team, but I'll tell you, Louis Riddick knows his ball. And if you watched him on ESPN college stuff, he's got his together. He does. And I think he's going to make a good player personnel guy or general manager someday.
Well, I can tell you right now, he's not getting a job this offseason. You're right, James.
No, because the only other team he interviewed with
was and the Houston job is taken.
The job is taken, and those are the only other 2 jobs he interviewed for.
And if he's smart, he's not taking the Jacksonville Jaguars. And I've worked with Louis Riddick. He's smart. He's not taking the Jacksonville Jaguars job.
No, that's good. I mean, I'm sadly old enough to remember him as a player, and he was a reasonable player. I'm going to say he was drafted in the days when we had more than 7 rounds, and I think he was a late round draft choice.
By the way, Pod, do you guys converse during games on your platform there?
Oh, on the Slack? Oh, yeah.
Sometimes, most of it's nonsense, if I'm honest.
Doc really wants an invite to the Slack channel.
Yeah, we should get him on the Slack channel. That will leave him, either make him or break him.
Sure. Whatever.
We can certainly.
Why do you
invite
call it a Slack channel?
Well, that's the app that we use.
Slack.
The app.
Slack,
Oh, it's an app. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Slack.
The only guy
We
Go ahead.
listen. It would be an honor for you to get into the Slack channel because at one point we actually opened up invites for people to join us on the Slack channel, but they had to join our Patreon group. And nobody joined the Patreon group, so no one joined the Slack channel.
I mean, I'm just looking forward to the Doc and Jared conversations. That's going to be.
Oh gosh,
It's going to be great.
Jared. Who's Jared?
Crazy Jared.
He is. What's the term? An acquired taste.
Whatever. I only talked to a Saints fan who
He's
owns a Saints man cave during the day, who I'm interviewing for my radio show. We just go back
Urban
and forth
Meyer
for
is seen getting off
therapy.
a plane in Jacksonville's airport.
There you go. Urban Meyer will be the new head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars. Maybe he'll be the general manager too. Maybe he got full power, or he'll share.
You know
that
what?
power
He's
with,
going to put
Chuck.
bums in seats. He's going to put bums in seats. He's, he coached Florida, so.
Well, in Jacksonville, he literally will put bums in.
Yeah. I should also just say Jared has these moments of being absolutely tremendous as a super fan. So that's
All right. Let's wrap this doozy up, ladies and gentlemen. If you'd like to join the Slack channel, I believe our Patreon group is still open. You could go and sign up for Patreon. I'm not really going to promote that too much, though, because I haven't given it any thought since we first tried that push. You can also get in touch with us via email, nextfanup@gmail.com. You can tweet us at NFU Podcast, facebook.com/NFU Podcast. Another great way to continue the conversation if you're not going to pay to be part of our Slack channel. And listen, Doc is special. He's been a guest all year long.
Slutty brownies coming your way.
That sounds delicious. So for the super fans,
I'm going to say I'm really looking forward to the uncensored Doc on the Slack channel.
oh boy, for Neil, for James, for Doc, I am Pod Vader. There you have it.
Dear friends and colleagues, saying goodbye is never easy. I believe we can all feel proud of what we have done together, and through it all, you have maintained your professionalism and commitment and remain true to the spirit of the Charter. That principle.
We go out, we hit people in the mouth.